Welcome back to my channel. It's Ijoma here. In today's video I'll show you guys how to make a butterfly ruched dress. I don't know the name that I'll give this dress, but I know that it has a butterfly like something at the sides. So I'll use this black fabric to illustrate it first so that you guys can see my markings clearly. The other material is the main fabric that I will use, but I want to use this black fabric so that you guys can understand my markings for this dress so well. So I folded out my fabric, and the first thing that I will cut is my main bodies, the busty part. So it is an off-shoulder dress, so I'll cut the off shoulder first, from the off shoulder to the half length, then I'll continue with the down part. So the first thing that I will do for this video is to subtract 6 inches. My off shoulder will start at 6 inches, so I'll subtract 6, then I'll mark my bust point 11, and half length 16 and a half, and an extra 1 inch, that is 17 and a half. So the first thing that I will measure is my bust measurement, but first of all I'll mark my lines. I'll mark my lines for my allowance, for my half length, and for my bust points. So after marking these lines, I'll go ahead and measure my bust, take my bust measurement. My bust is 39 inches, 38 inches, sorry, divided by 4 plus 1 inch, and I'll mark. So I'll mark my waist measurement, but before that I'll mark my dart. My dart is 4 inches, so I marked 4 inches. Then I'll mark my waist measurement. My waist measurement is 28 divided by 4 plus 1 inch for seam allowance and another 1 inch for dart allowance. Then after that I'll go ahead and connect the waistline to the bust line. So at the chest, my chest measurement is 10 inches. We know that an off shoulder dress, the sleeve starts somewhere around your armhole. So my chest measurement, the distance between one armpit to the other armpit is 10. Then that is 5 inches plus 1 inch for seam allowance, that is 6. So I marked 6, and from the bust point I'll come up by 2 inches and connect that 6 inches to my bust point line, that is 2 inches above my bust point. My armhole, I normally make my armhole 2 inches above my bust point. Then I'll go ahead and cut. So this is for the front part, and it is on fold. After cutting the front part, I will use it and cut out the back part. The only difference between the front and the back is the zipper allowance. So I'll place the front panel on the back panel. I'll cut the armhole, and then I'll cut my half length. Then I'll mark 1 inch for zipper allowance, and I'll cut. And after that I'll go ahead and I'll notch my dart so that it will be very easy for me to pick while sewing. So I've notched my dart, and that is it for the upper part. The next thing that I will do now is to cut the down part. As you can see, the back panel is 2 pieces. Remember your zipper allowance, because this dress has a zip. Then I've cut it out on my black piece, because I'll not line this dress, but I use the black fabric to do my marking so that you guys will see what I did clearly. So I'll cut it out on the main fabric. If you want to line your own fabric, you are very free to line it. So I've cut the front part. The next thing that I will do is to cut the back part. So I'm done cutting the upper part, and the next thing that I will do now is to cut the down part. So in order to fold out your fabric for this butterfly part, you will divide your hip by 4 and add an extra 10 inches or more depending on how long you want your butterfly to be. So her hip is 40, divided by 4 is 10, plus 10 inches, that is 20 inches, and then extra 1 inch allowance for folding the edges. Okay, let me break it down. The down part is a cut together. You cut the place that looks like a gather together with the main skirt. So in order to do that, you will divide your hip by 4. That is, if your hip is 40, if you divide it by 4, it will be 10 plus another 10 inches, and that will be 20 plus 1 inch for folding the edges, because you will fold the edges. We are not going to turn it with a lining. So the next thing that I will do is to subtract my half length, and my half length is 16 and a half. So I've subtracted my 16 and half. I'll place it at 16 because I'll use half an inch to join. Then from there, I'll mark my hip measurements. You come down by 1 inch. After placing your half length, you come down by 1 inch. Let me say your half length is 16 or 17. That means you come down by 18 and mark 18. Then you mark your shoulder to hip. My shoulder to hip is 28 inches, and the next that I will mark is the full length. I'll mark my shoulder to hip. The next that I will mark is my full length. Let's say you want your full length to stop at 44. Okay, let's just assume that the full length is 44. But remember that this dress is a ruched dress, so you will have to drag it so that it's gather. So what you will do is that you will mark your full length first. Let's say your full length is 44. You will mark it. Then from there, you add an extra 10 inches or more depending on the volume of your fabric. But my fabric, I'm just using 3 yards of fabric for this dress. That's why I marked 10 inches plus 1 inch for seam allowance. So from the full length, you will add extra. Anything that you add should be more than 10 inches, 10, 15. If possible, make it 20 inches, so that when you draw the strings, everything will look very, very full. So I've marked my waistline, my hip line, and the full length plus allowance. The waist is 28 inches divided by 4, that is 7. That is 7 inches plus 1 inch for seam allowance. Remember that I came down by 1 inch from the half length. Remember, that's where I marked that first line. Okay, I'll draw the line so that you understand. So this is the first line. You measure your half length, then from your half length you come down by 1 inch. Then when you mark the 1 inch, you measure your waistline. Then from that point where you measured where you marked your waistline, you extend the line to reach the edge of the fabric that you folded. I don't know if you understand that this is your waist. Then from there, you extend the line, then you cut it straight down. That's just the thing. That's why I added an extra 10 inches or 11 or 12 to the side, because oh sorry, I made a mistake while cutting. I'll place it back. If you are cutting this dress, look at how you cut it. You first of all cut the waist and stop at that point where you marked your 1 inch or half an inch. Then you cut straight to the edge of the folding that you made, and then you cut straight down. That's just it. That's why I came in by 1 inch at the waistline or half an inch depending on what you want, because that's the place, that's just an allowance that you join to the waist. Then the rest you fall by the sides. I'm done cutting that. This is my front part. When you are shaping, you will shape from the outside, you will not shape from the inside. We will still get to that. So this is the front part. The next thing that I will do is to cut it out on my main fabric. Remember that the black fabric is not my main fabric, but I used it to draft the pattern so that you guys will see my markings clearly. So I'm cutting. You cut your full length. So this is for the front, and using the main fabric for the front, I'll fold another fabric, and this one that I'm folding now is for the back part. Guys, this dress will have a zipper at the back, so you add a zipper allowance to the back panel. That means the back panel will be in two pieces. The front is on fold, it's a one piece, but the back will be in two pieces because you open it at the zipper allowance. So I've folded my fabric and I've placed the front part on the back part. The next thing that I will do is to cut. Let me position my camera so that you guys will see very well. Then I'll go ahead and cut. You open your zipper allowance and then you cut the full length, and that is it for the down part. The next thing that I will do is to cut my sleeve and the facing for the bustier. So first of all, I'll cut my sleeve. The sleeve is a puff sleeve, it is not a straight sleeve. So I'm folding the fabric so that I can cut the sleeve. I folded the fabric. I'm already running out of fabric, that's why I'm trying to manage this. So I folded it twice so that when I cut once, I will have my sleeve, and that is it, guys. So I'll cut my facing for the front part and the back part. Your facing should be 3 or 4 inches deep from the neckline. As you can see, it is 3 or 4 inches deep from the neckline. I don't want to turn it into a bias strip. So I've cut the front and I'm trying to cut the back. So I'm done cutting that and over to our sewing machine. So guys, first of all, I'll fold my facing. I'll hem the edge of my facing for the front, and I'll add my dart to my front panel. Trying to add my dart. I've done for one side and I'm repeating it on the other side. You will stop, your dart should stop at 1 inch below your bust point. And that is it for the dart. Then the next thing that I will do is to turn my neckline with my facing in order to give it a nice finishing. I'll open it and I'll top stitch on the facing, and that is it. So when you fold over, this is it. You can hand tack or you can use your hemming gum. Normally I use my hemming gum and pressing iron. I normally use it to hold down this part. So for the skirt part, you will hem the edges of the things that of the panels that you cut, but you will not hem the waistline. You leave the waistline because you will join the waistline to the bustier part. So that means you will hem all other sides, the 3 sides of this down part, leaving only the waistline. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm done doing that, and I'm trying to fold the other side of my skirt part. It has 4 sides, so I'll hem 3 sides. Then the waist side, I will hem just the extension only. I'll just hem the extension of the butterfly side of the waist part and leave the place where I marked my waist measurement, because that is where I'll join to the upper part. I'll show you guys later. Done hemming the sides for the front and the back. The next thing that I'll do right now is to join the zipper allowance for the down part. I love joining my zipper allowance because it helps me in taking accurate body measurements. So I normally join my zipper allowance before I take my body measurement. If you've been following me for a while now, you will know that that's what I normally do. The next thing that I'll do is to also join the zipper allowance for the bodice. I'll join and I'll iron it out. Then after that, I'll place the front and the back piece and then take my bust and my waist measurements. I'll mark her bust measurements, that is 38, and I'll mark the waist measurements, that is 28. Then I'll go ahead and join. So I've finished joining and I've ironed it out. Then I'll subtract my 6 inches. Remember that I said that my off shoulder will start from 6. I'll subtract my 6 inches, and from there I'll mark my half length and I'll trim the rough edge. Then at the chest line, remember that my chest line is 10 inches. That is from one point of the armhole to the other point of the armhole where I'll fix my sleeve. So I'll mark my 10 inches and I'll sharpen my armhole, and this is where I'll join my sleeve. So the next thing is to take the measurements for the down parts. As you can see, I've hemmed the edges, leaving only the waist parts. On a normal day, you will shape from the inside, but this time around, we will shape from the front. This is the back. You can see my zipper allowance, and I'll place the front panel on it. I'll take my body measurements from the front. We all know the way we join our normal boo-boo or our butterfly dress. So I'll place it, and the next thing that I will do is to take only my waist measurements and my hip measurements. You will not shape the knee parts because it doesn't have a slit at the back. I'm trying to hold it down with a pin. You mark only your waist measurements and the hip measurements, and from the hip measurements you will shape straight. You will not give it the hourglass shape at the knee, because it doesn't have a slit at the back, so that you can walk freely. You'll be able to walk freely. So I'll mark my waist measurements. I don't know if you guys can see it. That's my waist measurement, and I'll come to the hip and I'll mark my hip measurements. I'm trying to determine the center of the panels. Then I'll mark my hip measurements. I'll connect the waist to the hip, and from the hip I'll shape it straight down so that she'll be able to walk freely. So this is it, guys. You go and sew on this line straight down. So I'm trying to sew on the line. I'll sew on the line straight down. and I will join the other side as well. So after that, now this is how to achieve the ruched part. I'll run another stitch close to my main shaping on my main stitch. I'm just trying to make a channel where I will insert either your elastic or your piece of clothes. So I'm trying to make a channel there. You run another stitch there. That is how I achieved my ruched effect. So the next thing that I'll do is to insert a bias strip inside using my safety pin. As I'm inserting the bias strip, I'll be drawing it. So after, I will secure the bias with a stitch, a double stitch, and that is it for one side. When you draw it, you get that ruched effect. You try and use a thread that will not be too visible. So at the other side, I'll insert my bias strip also. So as you're inserting it, you'll be dragging it inside and you'll be doing your gathers. Once you achieve the volume of gathers that you want, or the full length that you want, if you want your dress to stop at 44 or at 56, anyway you want it to stop, once you achieve that full length immediately, then you will stop and secure the bias strip or your elastic depending on the one that you used. So when I reach the waist side, I will secure it. So I actually left this bias strip until my client fits the dress. It is fine for you to fit it before you determine the full length, so that you'll be able to know where to cut the bias strip from, so that you won't have a lot of issues amending the dress. Then the next thing I'll do is to open my zipper allowance for the upper part, and I'll join the up and down. So after joining the upper part and the lower part, you go ahead and add your zipper, and that is all for this tutorial. It's not that hard. Just take your time and arrange everything so well. Then you finish and you overlock. I'm adding my zipper right now, and after adding my zipper, this is what I have. Thank you guys for watching, and please do not forget to subscribe and click on the notification bell, so that anytime that I upload a new video, you'll be the first to get notified. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Bye.